Hello and welcome to the Let That Shift Go podcast. I'm Noel.
And I'm Lena.
And this is where we talk about the good, the bad, and all the shift in between.
We'll just talk mad shift.
Let's get into it. And on today's episode, we're going to talk about control. There's a book, it's the next book actually by Gay Hendrick. It's called The Genius Zone. And it's something that Lena read recently. But before we get into that, let's do these Skin Deep cards.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Grab one. I'll grab one. You first.
When do you miss me most?
When do I miss you most? I think when you're on vacation.
So you miss me a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You're on vacation a lot. So yeah, I would say, yeah, when you're on vacation, I don't know if it's the distance, but yeah, when you're on vacation.
I'm always available though.
Yeah, but I think maybe it's because when you're not on vacation, I feel like I can call you anytime. But when you're on vacation, I kind of have this like, oh, don't call her today. You know, like she's trying to clear it out, to reset, relax. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. So
yeah,
I think it's because I kind of create a boundary.
Well, just know that I'm probably more available when I'm on vacation than I am when I'm at home. But yeah, text.
Oh.
If I can't do it, then I'll get back to you. But
Yeah.
never feel like that.
If it's important, I would call.
Yes.
So, okay. My question is, when do you think we misunderstand one another, and what do you suggest we do about it?
When do I think we misunderstand each other? I think if we don't have time to talk and like really be able to get into it, maybe then. But because I think when we communicate, we've gotten really good at being in depth with communication and really just trying to tune in.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not really a big problem.
Was it in the past though? Like
I didn't know it was. I think that there was a lot of misunderstanding and I was completely unaware of it.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't saying stuff. That's why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like, I feel like that's the norm for most people is just, I'm just not going to say anything. So there's so much really lack of communication, miscommunication because things aren't being said. So the way that I'm understanding it is really not the way that you are.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of like, well, ignorance is bliss. I don't know. I think he thinks I'm really great, but you know, that probably wasn't the thing.
Yeah. There was times when I wonder like, is she mad at me? Or, you know, there could have been times like that. You know?
Yeah. When all it would take is to say, hey, is everything okay? Are we good? And I don't know that maybe we were at a place that was more comfortable.
Yeah.
You know, now I think it is, but
yeah, it wasn't back then though.
No. And yeah, like I said, I feel like that was normal.
Yeah. So we did misunderstand each other. And the thing we could do was actually do what we did, which is connect actually and have a real conversation.
Yeah. Like a real talk.
That's
okay.
what we could do about it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into this book. What is this book for you? What brings this book about?
You know, it was the next in a series by Gay Hendrick that we talked about last week was The Big Leap. And if anybody hasn't read that or listened to the podcast from last week, I highly suggest you do. This is kind of like a follow-up to that. And even if you haven't, this will still be really useful because it's a practical bit of knowledge and advice. And in reading the book, there were a lot of great takeaways. It really kind of, builds upon taking a big leap, changing your focus. And it talks about living in your genius zone. What is the genius zone? You know, that's kind of outside of your comfort zone, even outside of your zone of excellence. It's like the thing that you most uniquely can bring into a space, right?
Yeah.
And so, okay, well then how do you live in that genius zone? That was the reason I picked up the book and I was like, okay, what's going on in here?
Yeah, that was interesting. The last book, it was like, okay, so now we get some practical application in how to sustain that or practice it. Yeah.
Exactly. And there was a certain practice in the book that I found kind of like it was a game changer. And, it came up as something that was really useful, not just for me, but in a situation that I had recently with a very dear friend who's going through one of the hardest of the human experiences, which is, illness in their family with their spouse. And just the amount of of, pain and just trauma that's really going on a daily basis is just unfathomable in so many ways.
Hard to watch.
Really hard to watch. And so watching this person go through these, trials of having someone who's ill, right? And you are their advocate, the spouse, as their spouse or their advocate, and really trying to watch out for them and make sure all the appointments are met and make sure, the doctors are doing the right things and getting from point A to point B, and just this large, collaboration of efforts that's going on in order to take care of this person you love, right?
This is extreme.
This is in the extremes. Yeah. So I'm looking at like, man, if something like this could work in the extremes, imagine how it could work in the daily.
Yeah.
When you're not living in the extremes.
Absolutely.
And it applies. What I love is this practice applies in both.
And what if you practice it in your daily when you get those extremes?
Oh my gosh, then you've created that muscle, that's able to do it. And so, what came up was literally that, like looking at someone that you love and trying to figure out how you make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing and that, that everybody's doing the right tests and they're giving the right medicines or whatever it is. Well, there's a list. Most of that list is things that are completely out of her control. Right?
Absolutely.
So there's some things that you can control and there's some things that you cannot. But delineating them is really an important part to that. But when you're in the midst of stress and you're in the midst of, the story of what's going on, everything feels like the spin out.
Yeah.
Right. And so even in our daily life, we can stress about things like on a daily basis that you literally have no control over.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of energy. So if you had a wad of cash as a representation of all the energy you had in a day, how much of it are you spending on things you have absolutely no control over? And here's a hint. You don't have control over anything.
Yeah.
You really don't. But there's a degree to which you can, do something about something and something where you can't. And a lot of times the things that you have no control over are the things that spin you out the hardest.
Yeah.
And when you start to spin like that, you end up in a pit.
Yeah.
Right? And even the things you could do something about get no attention because you have no energy for them.
Yeah. It's kind of focusing on the negative, right?
Yeah.
The things you can't control typically are the negative things.
Yeah. And they're the heaviest because, especially if you're somebody that thrives on being in control of a situation, a lot of that is built in hypervigilance as a child. Needing to control your environment, needing to control the people around you or figure out what's going on so that you can stay safe. That creates like this underlying feeling of like, I must be able to have a say in everything that's going on in order for me to be safe. That's an old program. It's not necessarily true. It's probably not true, but we'll spend a lot of our time, a lot of our energy, a lot of our focus in that state.
Yeah.
And so is there a way for us to not have to try and function in that? That's just, it's like just holding on to that beach ball underwater and being like, yeah, it's okay. It's okay. And it's just stress. It builds so much stress in the body. It turns into illness. It turns into anxiety, panic, all that. And a lot of that is on stuff that you can't control. And then you just get even more focused on how helpless you feel.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, very disempowering.
Yeah.
To any situation. So, I was having this discussion with her and just having come off of reading the book, and there's a lot of stuff in the Genius Zone that is so useful. But this is just one of the things that I kind of synthesized into a way that seemed a little more practical that I feel like were helpful. Right. And so one of the things to do is like to physically feel what does controlling literally feel like in your body when you're trying to control something.
Yeah.
So here's a practice, right? Is to hold something in your hand, whether it's like a pen.
Yeah, like just physically grab something.
Physically grab something. A tennis ball is a really good one. Just something that you can physically grab that's not going to break when you need to let it go. But like physically picking up this pen and holding your arm out rigid and kind of gripping it and feeling the grip.
Yeah, you're holding your hand out in front of your body right now.
Yeah, I'm holding it out in front of my body and I'm gripping this pen and I can feel the tension in my arm. I can feel it reach all the way up into the shoulder and how much energy it's taking in my body to hold on to this thing.
Yeah.
Right. And then to just, consciously looking at your hand, feeling that tension in your arm, and start to open your fingers and drop it. Just letting it drop, letting your fingers relax, letting them open, and feeling the tension release in your arm, in your hand, and how much energy suddenly becomes more available to you in your body.
It's almost like a meditation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, to do that like over and over, just this physical practice of holding something tightly, feeling what it feels like to hold on tightly.
10 seconds, like what? Yeah.
A few seconds, just long enough for you to notice the tension, the energy that you're using, and then to drop it again. And feel like, well, what does that feel like? What does that release feel like to actually let something go?
Yeah.
Right? Over and over, what does that feel like? Feeling the contrast, feeling the difference between holding on and letting go, letting it drop. And just building that kind of muscle memory of what that feels like. And then, then taking that as an emotion. Like, what is the emotion? What is the stress? What is this thing that you're trying to control? How does that feel to hold on to it? Like, how do you then, be able to identify how you're doing that physically and emotionally of holding on to control of something, whether it's control of the behavior of someone else or how you're perceived, right? How people think of you, whatever, just fill in the blank of whatever it is that you're trying to control. And what does it feel like to actually let that go? So if you picked up the pen and you said, this pen is my control over what people think of me. Okay, what does it feel like to hold that and control it, to like hold it, keep your grip? And what does it feel like to let it go? It feels very different in your body, and start to integrate that into your mind of what it feels like to let something go.
Yeah, so just a practice of
physically letting something
the
go.
outside with the inside world, like the inside you and the outside you.
Connecting the dots of the emotion and an object, because it can be very similar, because physically you can feel the object and the tension, and then emotionally just letting something go, letting it drop. Okay, here's what that feels like. Here's what that feels like, over and over and over, until you really are like, oh yeah, that there is a difference in the amount of energy I'm using to hold something tight and to let it go. And so it's like, okay, well, now what do I do? I did this physical, exercise of letting go. What does letting go feel like? And one of the things that, he describes it a little differently, but making a list with a red and a green pen. But what, she didn't have a red and a green pen. So I was like, do you have Post-its? Let's get some Post-its. Oh, and let's use a
red and green Post-its.
Red and green Post-its.
Awesome. Yeah.
And so let's think about all the things that are stressing you out right now. Right? Are the doctors going to make the right decisions? Is that test going to get done on time? Okay. So write each one of those down on a Post-it. Is it go on red or does it go on green? Green is the things that you actually can do something about. Okay. Red are the things that you can do nothing about.
Yeah.
You literally have no control over them, and you know which ones they are.
Yeah. You got to be honest.
Yeah. Don't try to justify, well, if I just like bug them enough. No. Have you had the conversations you need to have? Yes. Is any part of that within you for you to do? No. Okay. Then that goes on a red.
Yeah.
Okay. So now you have a list. You have a list of things that you can do something about.
Physically in front of you, you have something written down.
Yeah.
That's super helpful for me. The way that I learn.
Yeah.
Is seeing visual,
Oh, I'm tactile.
Yeah.
So something I can, especially even sticking it, unsticking it.
Yeah.
Is you have your pile of red and you have your pile of green. Okay. So now you have two piles. Now what? Now what the hell am I supposed to do with these Post-its?
No. Yeah. What do you do?
What do you do with them?
Now you got a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. Now you got a bunch of stuff that's
it's
stressing
organized.
you out.
It's on the page. It's on a piece of paper.
You've literally made them into two lists. One you can do something, one you cannot.
Yeah, you have something tangible.
Yes. So now you take your reds, you put them over to the side because there's nothing for you to do.
Yeah.
Right? You take your greens, which in her case is, how can I care for myself right now? Right? What can I do? I need rest.
Yeah.
I'm tired. That's what I'm, writing on the green. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I have people calling me all day that want updates.
Yeah.
And that's pulling me back into a pit. The list goes on. So each one of those goes on a green. What can I do about them? So I need rest. All right, well then I'm going to make a comfortable place for myself to lay down. I'm going to read something that is mindless, that doesn't involve my monkey mind, that doesn't involve, illness or stress or whatever. And I'm going to allow myself to relax.
Yeah.
Right? That's one of the things I can do about that. What's another thing? I can tell people this is my boundary with communication. I can limit the time that I'm available to communicate about this.
Yeah.
I can control that. So me hopping on a phone every 5 minutes, that is actually in my control.
Yeah.
Right? So I can do something about that. Now, what's really beautiful is when you start to do that and you take one green thing and you do something about it, there's an empowerment there.
Yeah, momentum.
You get empowered. You can build momentum, and you can see how you actually are using the energy that you have in a productive way.
Yeah,
in a way that's bringing satisfaction, is and allowing you to kind of go over this list of things that you need that are stressing you out and what you can do about them, and actually doing them
without the distortion of the red.
Without the distortion of the red and the chatter of the red and the loud screaming of the red. So there's just more energy available to focus on a positive outcome, on how you are able to do something about your situation when you can.
Do we have to, is there an order? Like when you get the greens, are you trying to prioritize them at all? Or is there any rhyme or reason to how you approach that, or just kind of go by feeling?
I think, maybe go by feeling, because maybe what you wrote down first is the most alive thing for you. But, what occurs to me though is to start with the easiest thing.
Yeah, I kind of like that. We talked about previously, is like finances and stuff.
Yeah.
Gaining momentum with the smaller things.
Yeah.
Usually helps me anyways to get to a place, just to build momentum and get faster and I can handle those bigger things.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you get this win, each small win starts to build into a bigger win. Each small win starts to tell your body that you can do this.
Yeah.
So when you're tackling the big things, you're like, man, I just cleared out 4 greens.
Yeah.
I can do this. I can do anything.
But I think you still have to keep in mind the whole airplane thing, where putting a mask on yourself before you help others. Because the key thing that you said was sleep. Like if sleep is, sometimes people will not prioritize that and be like, well, I can put that off for now. And that actually should be first. So
yeah,
I think that should be a caveat to that whole green thing, because the self-care is probably the most important, and that be, that's a broad term and it could mean many things, but I think physical, your physical health is got to be so important.
Oh yeah. And it's one of the things we put last.
Yeah.
Because we're like, well, I can do this. I'm alive. I'm awake. I'm well. And well, you may start out that way, but it's not, you're going to pay, the piper's going to, the bill's going to come due.
Oh yeah. Well, it's like holding a little baby. If you hold a little bit, even they're only 7-8 pounds, for after half an hour, you can't even open your arm anymore. It hurts so bad,
Yeah. So I think, intuitively, I would say focusing on the small things that you can do just builds confidence for the bigger things.
Yeah.
And really being conscious about where you're putting your energy. And if it's on that big red list that you can do nothing about, that's not where you want to spend it, and it actually just puts you further and further into the pit, and it makes it's very defeating, right? And so what you want is to feel empowered, that you do have, some say-so in what's going on, because you'll overlook the ways that you do have power, by concentrating on the ways you don't.
Yep.
And even bringing up that, even you can be addicted to control.
Yeah. Many of us are.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of us get, our exercise of that control through little video games on our phones or, Farmville, what Dragon, all these different games that we play just to keep our minds busy. But, a form of control.
Yeah. Control in relationships, control, over your environment constantly. And I don't know, to me, control is a complete illusion, because at any time, something can happen. Usually it's the most unexpected thing that, you couldn't anticipate to control. And even the very act of thinking that you have control, you're constantly living in the future,
Yeah.
You
That's
know?
what, yeah, survival. That's where I felt I lived for
Yeah.
the last 47 years is in survival
Yeah.
and not actually, living now, was just always worried about what was going to happen.
Yeah. And how'd that work out for you?
Not great. Not great. I mean, in many ways it did because there's some benefit to being, wanting to be in control because I make a great manager for some reason. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? I'm able to run a business and that kind of thing. So, control, being good at control does have its advantages, but when it comes to the personal life, you end up manifesting some pretty gnarly things, when you're trying to control an outcome, of something other than yourself,
Yeah. Yeah, for
and
sure.
that's what I felt like I was doing. I was trying to control the outcome of my family, like how I saw we should be, just kind of, the success, what my vision of success was.
Yeah.
And so trying to create that control created a lot more problems,
Friction.
because other people had their own
Control.
and visions for themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know I definitely a person that never wanted to be controlled. And so, for a time that was an issue of like, if one thing is you try and tell me what to do, I'm going to do the opposite.
Yeah.
So that can cause friction. But that was me also trying to control my environment,
Yeah.
So the thing that how it relates to even being in the genius zone is our needing to control and hold on to things really can block us from really moving into what that genius zone is.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you think about, well, how would that relate? If you're trying to control the way people see you,
Yeah.
there's a lot of fear of risk. There's a lot of fear of actually expressing what your genius is or living in that genius because it requires vulnerability.
Yeah.
Well, if you are afraid of being vulnerable, you're constantly trying to control the way in which you're perceived, the way in which you're seen, and that will limit your ability to really be vulnerable and move into next leveling your performance in any area, whether it's like more love, more success, more whatever.
Yeah.
That will inhibit your ability to kind of move into that genius.
What's like, so you were something, it struck something for me because you said about, trying to control your emotions. But for me, I feel like the emotions, you're not always in control of your emotions. That's a thing that we just lose most often. So how are we able to reach that genius and stay in the control? What in our daily stuff?
Well, I think awareness, is when you're talking about emotions, that's energy in motion, right? So if you are constantly reacting, that is not, I mean, I wouldn't say that that's like you're in control of your emotions because you're just constantly in reacting. So, when we go back to like, okay, well, if we're talking about how, we are reacting in a situation and wanting to control that, it's different from trying to control an outcome other than your own, how you're perceived.
Yeah.
Right. But it's really becoming aware. So a lot of the things we can do, we've talked about breath awareness and just being able to move into a state of becoming aware of what's going on in our body and all, and what's triggering us, all of that. So that would really be moving into a form of breath awareness and really noticing even like how you're breathing, like when you're holding that object, how are you breathing? It ain't smooth.
Yeah.
It's kind of short, tight, up in the upper chest. So really just becoming aware of like, is this another way that my body is reacting to holding on to control? So start to bring some awareness to your breath. Start to belly breathe in through the nose, and some practices to kind of do some daily clearing of what you're holding on to. And just becoming aware of, is that what's going on? Are you trying to control a situation? Because it's not always really apparent in the moment. Like when I'm having this conversation with my friend, it's not necessarily the first thing that comes up is, you're trying to control the outcome, right? Well, no, I'm just trying to make sure everything gets done. Okay, but what of these things do you actually have any input on? Well, okay, about a third of them, if that. Okay, well, let's recognize what those are and let's do this. but it's, just
See,
coming
in the
into
moment,
awareness.
it's hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the practice of the green and the red Post-its really puts it in perspective because it's in front of you, and literally you can pull each one down and crumple it and throw it away as you knock them out.
Yeah.
And the red ones, like, what do you do? Okay, so do you ever get back to the red ones? I mean, what do you do with these red ones?
Well,
Because they don't just go away. There's still problems.
They don't go away.
Yeah, we can't just, what do you call, emotionally bypass them, right?
No. So you still have your stack of red, right? So maybe, in a day or two, revisit them. Has anything changed with your ability to do anything about these? No. Okay, well, then those still stay in the red. I mean, my suggestion is at the end of the week, you just have a little burning ceremony.
Yeah.
And you look at each one and you burn it.
Little paper, just burn it away. Yeah.
Just burn it. It's on a piece of paper. Let it go and drop it again. Feel the drop physically.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So maybe you put it in your hand, drop it into an ashtray or whatever.
I don't know. Wrap it around a rock and then drop it into the fire.
Yeah.
And just watch it burn. But energetically, like, watch it and let it go. Like, say, I release control of this. I know that I do not have control of this, and I'm letting it go. Like, saying that out loud or even to yourself, there's something about, helping to regulate your nervous system around it, and saying, I recognize I don't have control over this, and I'm letting it go.
Yeah, because it's really hard to put in, to attach the physical emotion with your emotions, and so I like that exercise of dropping the pen and then even dropping the piece of paper into a fire. I mean, physically letting it go, actually, it makes sense because we're really trying to connect the body and the mind.
Yes.
And there's definitely a disconnect there because of all the distortion that we got going on within ourselves. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. I don't know personally that was my suggestion. It was like, that pack of red, that's for the burn pile.
Yeah.
And you have to let it go. And, this is something you can do weekly. I don't know. Sometimes you have to do it daily. I don't know what kind of situation you're in, but when it's happening, you can feel the contraction in the body.
Yeah.
And that's when, the teacher's here. Like, it's time to kind of take stock. What's going on? Am I trying to control an outcome? A lot of times when you have anxiety, it's around fear of the future, regret over the past, which you can do nothing about.
Yeah.
But if there's fear of the future, it's because you're afraid that it's not going to match the outcome that you want.
Yeah.
Right? So what in that outcome that you want do you have the ability to do anything about? Then that's the list making time.
Yeah.
And that's when you go in and you start saying, all right, I can win at this. I can do this thing. Let me give my energy to that. And then let me start weighing in more heavily what's going right.
Yeah.
Right? As opposed to what's going wrong.
And leading more positively, letting go of those negativity.
Yeah. And those short wins, those small wins, those are small shifts. Those lead to big shifts.
Yeah.
Now, if you can do this on a basis with just normal stressors, right? Something with the kids, something at home, with what's going on. You start doing this and this becomes a practice.
Yeah.
Now, when the big things hit, you've already developed that muscle.
Yeah. And if you don't have the red and green Post-it, you can use the red or green pen,
Yes.
or you can write the notes on your phone, whatever works for you.
Or you can take a piece of paper, fold it in half. This side is can do.
Yep.
This side is
can't do. Yeah.
Right. And then,
because we'll all
down.
make excuses for why we couldn't do the lists.
yeah.
I didn't have red and green Post-its.
Okay, let's address all the. You can take one piece of paper and fold it in half, and this side, one side is this, one side's that. Different color pens.
Yep.
Boom.
All of those things.
Yeah, there's no excuses.
Yeah.
I don't have a tennis ball. Well, you have a pen. Just drop the pen, but feel the grip.
And this is really how we rise above excellence and get to our genius. So you should be at a stage where we're willing to do this work.
Yeah. It's not hard. It's not hard to do this simple practice, but it can be really powerful.
Yeah.
Like every day, what are the things that are stressing me out? All right, let's make a list. What can I control? What do I not control? Right. And go for it. Try it. Do it as an experiment.
Just as an experiment.
Just do it as an experiment. Like, get curious. Like, I don't know. I think she's full of shit. I don't think this is okay. Well, then just give it a go, and see if it is.
Yeah.
If it is something that could be helpful.
Yeah. Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, please.
Send it to us.
I want to know what was your method.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
All right. That's been another episode of Let That Shift Go podcast. I'm Noel.
And I'm Lena. Let us know what your questions are, and we'd love to use them on a future episode. Or check us out on Insta at Let That Shift Go, or visit our website, serenitycovetemecula.com.